Welcome back to TechNet Radio. It's IT time, and in this episode, Blain, Barton, and John Baker welcome Jon Rolls, Vice President of Product Development for Desktop Virtualization at Quest Software. Listen in as they chat about the consumerization of IT from a virtual desktop perspective, how to extend Microsoft VDI, terminal server, and session host technologies. Blain, the mic is yours.
Hello and welcome to IT Time Radio. I'm your host, Blain Barton, Senior IT Pro Evangelist at Microsoft. And today I have, of course, my co-host and peer and friend, Mr. Jon Baker out of Atlanta. He's also a Senior Evangelist. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. Finally made it back to Atlanta, and it's all windy.
Good. Well, at least you made it back safely to bring Mr. Jon Rolls, who's a VP of Product Management for Quest Software. Jon Baker and I are going to be interviewing him today, so I think we do have John.
Yep, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
How you doing today?
Doing great, thanks. Enjoying sunny Southern California.
Great. We even got your picture here in the video, so you're looking good, guy. Hey, welcome to IT Time Radio and being a guest on today's show. What we want to know is first just to get to know you a little bit about how you got started in IT, maybe your background.
Sure. I've been in IT for about 15 years in one way or another now. I started out, I did a math degree in the UK at Warwick University, and then went into IT after that. Started out in QA working on a whole range of platforms. So I've been around virtualization and emulation, as we used to call it, for about 15 years in one form or another now. And I've done a range of Windows management projects all around the world. Eventually moved to the US 3 years ago, and now heading up the Desktop Virtualization group here at Quest Software.
Excellent, excellent. So what we're going to talk about today is Quest solutions for desktop virtualization in Hyper-V environments. Great topic. Got a lot from the IT field. First question I have for you is, what do you think is driving the consumerization of IT from a virtual desktop perspective, and what is the key challenge there?
Yeah, that's a good question. We spend a lot of time thinking about this kind of stuff because it comes into our world every day. And there are kind of three things, I think, that are really driving this. First is just the proliferation of devices. In the last, 2-3 years, suddenly it seems that the range of devices that are appearing, not just in the workplace, but in the home has just exploded. There's incredible diversity out there. People are expecting to bring those diverse devices into the workplace and just have them work. Secondly, we're able to see people now self-serve IT functions. Previously, they had to go to the IT department to make certain things happen, to be able to share files between multiple different users, or connect themselves to an email system, or those kind of things that previously you had to go to the IT group to make them happen, enter a ticket, wait for a week or two. Now they just go online and do it themselves. And that makes a huge difference. The third thing we're also seeing is just a fragmentation of what was the traditional organization is being broken out into more and more subcontractors and agencies and third parties, people collaborating much more across traditional IT boundaries and expecting to be able to do that in a very frictionless way. So you put those three things together and you're seeing, this what we call the consumerization of IT, basically the dissolution of the traditional IT department. And the biggest challenge in all of that is, okay, my organization still fundamentally relies on Windows applications and Windows desktops. I mean, at the heart of most organizations, if not every organization, that stuff is still there. So how do I get those to those people? How do I get those to these new devices? How do I get them into this self-service model? And how do I deliver those things across, my corporate boundaries and out to, contractors and offshore workers and those kind of things? That's the biggest challenge we're seeing in the consumerization right now.
So, John, you see a lot of different interpretations of the term desktop virtualization these days. And in fact, some people even say that even though it's a hot topic right now, it's not really a new thing, and it's been around in various forms for quite a while. What's your view of desktop virtualization in its current form?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people who would claim to have been working in desktop virtualization for 15 years in one form or another, and that's what I find so interesting, but also so almost comical about this industry we're in today, is that suddenly, a well-known vendor of virtualization products invents the term desktop virtualization, and suddenly it's a new thing, whereas some of us have been running Windows applications on diverse devices and different kind of appliances, and deploying them into situations where Windows would not normally go for many, many years, and bringing organizations the benefits of all those of virtualizing and separating the Windows desktop and Windows applications from the hardware. So, no, it's not a new topic, but the benefits are being made visible to a new audience, and that's the exciting thing about being in this industry right now. So whereas traditionally, Windows is deployed directly onto the hardware on a PC device or a laptop, suddenly we're able to do things with Windows and deploy it into new areas and new devices, on cross-platforms, cross-organizational boundaries, remote workers, offshore workers, and do it in a highly secure, practical way, and address those consumerization challenges we mentioned in the last question. And there's so many technologies coming in now. I mean, just to name a few, you're going to see, hosted virtualization. Some of that is putting Windows desktops in VMs, be it on Hyper-V or other hypervisors. You're seeing terminal server getting a whole new lease of life, a whole new wave of attention, which is, is exciting for me, who's been around terminal server for 14 years now. We're seeing what we're calling local VDI, which is where you're getting much more focus on running a virtual machine on a laptop or on a PC. So solutions like MedV, some of the products we announced recently, the vWorkspace Mocha 5 suite as well, all around managing that local VM remotely and securely. And then finally, we're seeing much more uptake of things like app virtualization and even what we're calling user profile virtualization. I'm not sure there's a good name for that. Virtualizing the whole user experience. It's a whole wave of companies and technologies coming out now. And the fact is that no one of them is perfect. No one of them does everything you need it to. There is no one on the market who has a solution for everything. We're all gradually filling out the gaps, but there is no magic wand that's just going to work for every organization. You need to find the best blend and mix of those technologies to meet your different user types, your application types, and your working scenarios, locations, those kind of things. And that's the real challenge of desktop virtualization. If you try and apply a broad brush approach to it, if you try and make everything happen with VDI, you can be disappointed and it's be very, very expensive. So you've got to mix and match the appropriate technologies for every situation, every organization's different needs.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Mr. Rolls. I mean, you look at, IT organizations, one of the toughest decisions facing, decisions that they make that are interested in new technology advancements like desktop virtualization is depending on, where to start. So, what would you recommend a kind of a high value first step?
That's a good question, and that's something we've been thinking about for a while, because just part of getting into the whole process of engaging with an organization for us is to begin with that assessment process, is to say, okay, let's go and look at what you've got. Let's look at what's easily virtualizable, what's not. It doesn't make sense to virtualize every desktop. A lot of them should stay as physical desktops. So how do I get that blended approach? We introduced a technology called the Quest VDI assessment. It's not limited to VDI, I should point out. It's simply we wanted to capture the highest number of search results we could. So we figure people are looking for VDI, they're going to Google or they're going to Bing VDI. So fine, we'll go with VDI. But ultimately, it's an assessment tool. You put agents out onto your Windows desktops around the enterprise, and it monitors what the user does. Monitors their applications, their resource usage, how frequently they use those things, and it gathers all that data and feeds it back to a repository, which then gives you a very nice reporting interface that says, right, here is the low-hanging fruit. If you're going to start virtualizing people, go for these guys first, because they're using 8 applications and they're not using them very hard. They're the easy ones. Next, you look at the kind of they're not quite such good fit ones, and there's this whole kind of fit assessment process that happens. That's a free tool. We made that free because we wanted to get into this market in a quick way. Download it, play with it. It's free for there's a short eval period to start with, but give us a call and we'll give you the full eval license for as long as you need for your project. The whole point is it is a free tool. We don't have it on the price list. There is no way we can charge you for it. No one believes that, but it's true. And so that's something we made available as part of that process. But there are other tools out there as well. Once you know what applications you've got to decide, well, Do they run under terminal server? Will they run under VDI? Will they run under AppV cleanly? And so there are other third-party tools out there. We work a little with AppDNA, is a great product for doing that kind of stuff, and they will automate that process for you. So the first thing is to do that assessment, though. Go and get hold of a tool, ours or someone else's, that will get you started and help you assess which of your users, which of your desktops, which of your applications are suitable, and will give you the biggest bang for the buck right away.
Okay, so if someone goes out there and downloads your assessment software tool and does some testing with it, what's the next step? They're armed with all this information that they gathered. What's the next step after the assessment phase?
So that's great. Yeah, once you've got that initial set of what we call the low-hanging fruit, the best fit users for a particular VDI model, and in our reporting tool, you can then run a report and say, right, if I was to virtualize these users or these desktops on Hyper-V, for example, and we're about to upgrade that tool to understand the dynamic memory enhancements in Service Pack 1 for Hyper-V 2008 R2. So that report will now say, right, if you were to virtualize these users, here's the kind of density you would expect, here's the kind of how many users you might get per server. You can even use that to work out some rough costings. But the idea is that you can begin to model against different deployment scenarios. There's a terminal server report as well. So which of my users would make sense on terminal server? Again, what kind of density could I expect off that? And begin to work out a cost model based on that. Because the point you're trying to get to is being able to roll out a pilot of 50 to 100 users for a particular user group where you believe you can have a high chance of success and a high chance of it working economically. That's what we're trying to achieve. And the assessment tool gives you where to begin, gives you the guys to go after first, or the girls, as your immediate targets for virtualizing using one or more of those techniques. So once you've got that pilot working, you'll learn very quickly what works, what doesn't, which applications behave well, which ones don't, where you need to apply other virtualization techniques, where you need to apply perhaps an offline or a local solution as well for users who travel and are not always connected. But the main thing is to kind of get your feet wet, get involved in the technology, and once you've identified the easiest ones to virtualize, start with them.
Is the tool pretty easy to install and configure?
Great question. It comes as a virtual appliance. So literally you download it and you pretty much turn it on, boot it. There's a couple of configuration options, and then you start deploying the agents. And they can be pushed out through group policy or SMS or SCCM, whatever you're using.
Okay, cool.
Nice, nice. One of the hot topics we hear about, with respect to the consumerization of IT is the whole notion of, bring your own computer. How does desktop virtualization play into the strategy?
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot as well now. And it's not just, what we would think of as a computer traditionally, which is a thing with the keyboard and, a hard disk and those kind of things. We're now seeing a lot of tablets appearing as well. The number of tablets being sold and the number of new ones entering the market is frankly staggering. And last year, we went from a situation at the start of 2010 where a tablet was an interesting toy, but had no real role in the enterprise, whereas by the middle of the year, if you didn't have a client for a tablet, you were already off the RFP list. You literally weren't going to get your pilot completed. It was a phenomenal adoption we saw, and particularly in healthcare, some of manufacturing, and in academic environments, suddenly support for tablets became a must-have, no longer an option. So that was a big change for us. We're also seeing, a wider diversity of computers, in terms of the platforms running there. So that, again, just drives this desktop virtualization strategy. The fact is that, you need to support all of those things. And that's the beauty of desktop virtualization. You can take a common Windows image, deploy it and replicate it in your data center, and you can deploy and deliver applications and a Windows desktop to all of those users, no matter what device they've got. That's the beauty, or one of the many advantages. And it enables new ways of working as well, which is another exciting thing for us. We're seeing people who traditionally would carry a clipboard or be carrying a heavy device with them all day, now able to work with tablets and get the same applications streamed onto their device, as it were, throughout the day. It enables new ways of working. And one other area to bear in mind here I should cover as well is if I'm bringing literally my own device into the workplace, how do I separate those two worlds? How do I keep my personal life and my corporate life separate? And virtualization has a great role to play there as well, because I can literally create a sandbox around my corporate working environment. And that's one of the reasons we introduced the vWorkspace Mocha 5 suite last week. It lets you do that in a very controlled, managed way. It creates that corporate environment which lives on your personal laptop. You do your work in there, and it's centrally maintained and updated. But you also have your own, your work in your home environment, your personal environment to play with, and do your own personal stuff as well, and keep those two worlds separate. So virtualization is a very key technology in that whole area of bring your own computer.
It'd be interesting for our listeners to understand the relationship between Quest and Microsoft. Could you describe that relationship in the area of desktop virtualization?
Sure. Quest and Microsoft have actually worked together for many years. Quest is more traditionally known in the worlds of things like Windows migration, Windows management products. We have a very long, well-documented history of Microsoft around Active Directory tools, file server, SharePoint, Exchange management, all those kind of areas. Database management as well has been a big, strong area for Quest. We've been Partner of the Year twice in the last, I think, 7 or 8 years with Microsoft. So Quest and Microsoft has a long history there. The desktop virtualization world is relatively new. We, I think, first announced a partnership there kind of 2 years ago, and that's grown very rapidly. And we're seeing a lot of cooperation with Microsoft there, and enjoying that relationship going both ways. We're taking kind of an approach which has worked very well for Quest in the past in other areas. We're bringing that same approach to desktop virtualization in that we are making sure we integrate and work around Microsoft technologies very tightly. So, for example, we're just supporting dynamic memory in Service Pack 1 for Hyper-V, and Remote FX have been big ones. App-V is the only application virtualization that we tightly integrate with. We've been leading with Hyper-V for some time now because we believe it's the lowest cost, most efficient desktop virtualization platform, especially with the recent enhancements. So we've taken a strategy of making sure we build and enhance around Microsoft technologies, and things like the RDP protocol. We bring a set of like 9 or 10 different enhancements around that, but we keep that at its core. And over time, Microsoft continues to invest and improve the RDP protocol, and that's great because it means it's frankly less work for us to do. We can go and work on other areas, and automation and management and all those other good things that that we can bring to the Microsoft virtualization platform. So that relationship is basically, that's how it works in a nutshell. Is we continue to integrate and enhance and take advantage of new technologies as the Microsoft stack becomes by far the best platform for doing desktop virtualization on.
So that's great. Hey, it was a great interview today. Where do we go to get more information about what you're doing with Quest software and virtualization?
So quest.com /vworkspace will take you directly to the desktop virtualization pages. If you just go to quest.com, you'll see a whole bunch of virtualization stuff there. We have other products in other business units as well that also work with Microsoft Hyper-V and other technologies. So, but yeah, quest.com vworkspace leads you into my world.
That was a great interview. Thanks, Jon Rolls, VP of Product Management for Quest Software, talking about desktop virtualization. And with that, I have John Baker, also Senior IT Pro Evangelist out of Atlanta, for joining us today on the show. Once again, guys, thanks for tuning in to IT Radio. I think it's a wrap.